What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. This is Forgo, and today I'm going to show you guys how I was able to clear all of Chapter of Fight. And the reason this is important, guys, is because in Chapter of Fight, you're going to be able to acquire 100 rubies every single day. In these events, I've already collected them, every 5 stages you clear. When you clear 5 stages, you get 100 rubies. You also get 2 gold hammers. The next day, you can clear another 5 stages, get another 100 rubies. And in total, because there's 100 stages, you actually can get about 2,000 rubies every time Chapter of Fight shows up, guys. And it really does make a little bit of a difference as far as how many rubies you're going to get. Now, some people, they might scoff at it. I mean, I used to also, where they're going to be like, well, it's really, it's not that amount of rubies considering the investment that I have to put in. Oh, we just got to reset. Nice. But, if you're really trying to scrounge up as many rubies as possible, it's a nice little game mode to get a little extra something done. And it's all about the CP when it comes to Chapter 5. This game mode in the challenge dungeon here is all about CP, guys. They have complete CP requirements, and they also want you to use certain type fighters. Now, this isn't really so important. It doesn't matter what kind of fighters you're going to use, as I'll show you guys in a second, because I cleared all the way to the top, and I didn't use no defensive fighter here. They do get a max increase. They do decrease attack by 50%. I mean, there are benefits to having the required fighter that they use, but they also have a required CP amount, okay? So I want to give a big shout out to my boy Leo in Discord. Thank you so much, because he actually created this right here, guys. And this thing is actually pretty cool because it actually shows you the minimum CP requirement that you need to clear a certain tier. For example, Stage 5, you need 17,400 minimum CP in order to clear it. If you have 17,400 CP and you're only at Stage 5, you can absolutely clear it. When you go all the way up to Tier 100, if you have a minimum of 201,425 CP, you'll be able to do damage. It won't be much damage, guys. The more CP you have, the more damage that you'll be able to do. But that is the minimum requirement. If you have 201,425 CP, you will be able to do damage to the chapter fight in tier 100 and able to get it done. Because if you don't have the minimum amount of CP, you're not going to do any damage to this, guys. I mean, and this is, I'm going to put this actually in my Discord if you guys are interested in to check it out. But yeah, this is pretty awesome. Again, thank you so much, Leo, for putting in the time and the effort and work into this. This really, I think, is going to help out a lot of players as far as figuring out how much CP they actually need to go a certain level, guys. I mean, if you're trying to get to tier 65 or stage 65, you need 125,000 CP and so on and so on and so on. So that's actually really cool that he did that. Very nice. Thank you so much, Leo. Really appreciate it. So let me show you guys the builds on my characters. Now, I'm going to be using Orochi, Akuma, and Rugal. The main reason I'm just using these characters is, well, I'm using a Street Fighter character because they're actually insane for this crap. Now I'll explain why here in a second. But I already had a lot invested in Rugal and a lot invested in Orochi as well. So those are the reasons I'm using those characters. But let's take a look at how I ended up getting enough CP for these characters. Now, my Rugal is at A7, guys. He's 2-star here. He's at A7. He's almost at level 70. So he's pretty much almost maxed out. And I do have his capsules completely maxed out. You see, he's got 206,000 CP, right? We needed 201,000 to complete tier 100 or stage 100. And as far as my imprint stones, I got him all jacked, right? He's got nothing but double attack. And what I did was I took these stones from the other volumes, right, that actually give him critical damage, right? The volume 4 boss syndrome stone actually gives critical damage, and this really helps your CP. Now, I know not everybody's going to do this, and it's like, I don't really recommend doing this unless you do have some of these other stones. You have some unpairing kits, because again, whenever you want to unpair a stone, you can hit unpair, and you can use one of these kits that you can get from Guild Rate and actually unpair it and equip it to another character. So it's kind of an expensive thing to do. And then the third stone is a volume 3 stone that also gives critical damage. So getting that extra 50% critical damage makes a big difference, guys. When you're trying to add CP, crit rate, critical damage, attack, these things are enormous for characters' CP. And the fact that I have 2 stones that give an extra 50% extra critical damage in total really makes a difference. And then I got these double attack stones, right, that increase attack by 22% in total, right? And that also makes a big difference in our CP, right? And then we get to the cards. Now, this is where it gets actually pretty cool. On my Rugal, the only transcendent cards that I have are these 2 right here. And my transcendent stats actually give increased attack top fighter attack by 5.8%. So that also helps as far as my CP. So whenever you're trying to transcend your cards, you're changing color from yellow to red here, you're trying to get a stat for a specific character, whether it's balanced type fighter, whether it's a defensive fighter, or whether it's an attack type fighter. In my case, for Rugal, since he's an attack, this actually helps his CP tremendously, right? And then the next one actually gives attack type fighter bleed. Honestly, guys, dot isn't very good for adding CP. For damage, it's good, but in Chapter of Fight, it's all about CP or combat power. So if you increase critical rate, if you increase critical damage, increase attack, increase penetration, all these things are going to make a difference in your CP, but crit rate and critical damage are the numero unos, guys. And then we just have the Mad Tea Party set, right? And the Mad Tea Party set is godly because it actually increases your critical damage by 12% and your critical rate actually by 10% when you have all three of the cards. One of these cards actually gives 2% critical rate, and that makes a huge difference for our CP. And then, of course, the Cosmic card, which is one of the best cards in the game, that increases attack, critical rate, and critical damage. All three of these things are massive for your CP. And then this card here is actually nutty. This card can increase your critical rate and your critical damage by 4%. It is a nutso card to add CP. And if I transcended this card and say got more critical damage on it or more critical rate or attack, that would increase our CP even more. But since my Rugal's at level 69 and because of the way my fame system's leveled up, I just don't need to do that. We'll talk about the fame system here in a little bit, but yeah, very, very nice. Then we get into Orochi. Now Orochi's only at level 64. His CP's at almost 203,000. And for Orochi, again, guys, like his stones are just his regular stones. I do have a critical damage stone right here that does add some extra CP. If we take a look at it, it is the volume 4 stone, right? And that's kind of the benefits of being able to have all these stones is that I was able to switch them around, add some critical damage, which really made a difference. And honestly, guys, the BS characters are not going to be as good as, say, characters like the native EX characters, which I'll talk about here in a second. And then the last stone just gives decreased damage received. If this was a critical damage stone, it would have been easier to level up, get it more CP out of them. The last stones that he has, let me go back here. The last stones that he has are just these HP and balance. HP also increases your combat power, right? But this is kind of the thing about Rugal and Orochi, right? They are EX characters, but they're not native EX characters, right? They didn't come into the game as EX characters. You had to use a change-up kit in order to unlock the EX, and you do get more stats whenever you do that, but they just don't have as high as stats as a native EX character like Ryu, like EX Chun-Li, like Akuma, right? Which, I mean, you guys are going to see a pretty big difference with those characters or with those Street Fighter characters because of that reason. But, you know, we got the double stones here, right? HP and attack, and Rugal had double attack stones, right? A lot of investment, and it's very difficult to get these stones also, right? So just keep that in mind. And then, as you guys saw a second ago with that little spoiler, I got the Tekken set. This is the best set in the game to add CP. And I realize a lot of you don't have it, but the thing that I'm trying to point out in this video is that look at the investment that I have in Orochi. I have every single card in this character transcended. And I even have 2 gold moon and star shaped stones. Granted, they only add extra HP. If they were attack, it would be better. But it just shows you the level of investment you have to have in like these types of characters, guys. I mean, he's A7. And I do, for his transcendent stats, increase balance type fire penetration by 5.8%, right? And then in this one here, increase balance type fire penetration by another 5.8%. This adds CP for your characters. And each one of my cards does give increased balance type fighter HP by 4%. And then this next one here actually gives an increased balance type fighter attack by 4%. By the way, something else to note is that your 5-star cards will not give you that as high a transcendent stat as, say, like a Fest card, like so. And then this card here actually give another increased balance type fighter defense by 4%, right? I just kind of settled for whatever stat I got to add a little extra CP, but if those would have been critical damage, critical rate, it would have been a lot better. This card here is godly for your BS characters, and because it adds a 7% critical rate, guys. But the stat that I rolled on this thing is increased balance type fighter critical damage by 10.6%. So when I transcended this card, I got that extra 10.6% critical damage, which made a huge difference in my CP, guys. Like, look at this. When you unequip that thing, look at that drop. 31,000 CP drop. That's how much CP that card is adding. That is just nuts. And then I have a Kazumi card, which also again adds a critical rate, critical damage, and increased balance type fighter penetration. Every one of these cards I had to roll and roll and roll in order to get a stat for a balance type fighter like Orochi to increase my combat power. And I'm using a Tekken set on them, guys. Obviously, when you level your character up, that's going to increase your stats as well. But it was really, really difficult to get enough CP out of my Rugal and out of my Orochi, right? It really was pretty difficult because I had to use so many resources and had to have moon and star shaped stones that were gold, right? Instead of silver. Now, take a look at Akuma. This is pretty nutty. He's got 207,000 attack or 207,000 CP. He's at level 63, right? Look at his imprint stones, guys. I just used the Street Fighter stones, right? And the Street Fighter stones, guys, like the second one gives you critical damage, which is nice. That is awesome. But look at this. I'm just using the single attack. These are not double attack. These are not giving 22% extra attack. They're only giving 10. And yet I have 207,000 CP. But take a look at this, my friends. Okay? Look at these cards. I got 2 transcendent cards. Oh, I'm sorry, 3, right? 3 transcendent cards in this character. And I'm using the Mad Tea Party set again. None of them are transcended. So his 3PG gives him some critical rate by 2.8%, which really helped in my CP. This one isn't even transcended, but another thing about the Street Fighter characters, or like certain characters compared to like BS Rugal and Orochi, is that they actually have a native stat on their 3PG. This extra 6% critical damage makes a big difference in our CP, guys. A big, big difference. And then this option card we actually got for free. And this option card for your Street Fighters actually gives you the critical damage for Street Fighters by 15%, critical rate, attack, right? And then this here isn't even helping Akuma as far as CP. If I had a different stat here, like increased critical damage, like that Ignis card you just saw, this would be just absolutely nuts as far as adding CP. And this is what I mean. It was so much easier to get CP out of Akuma. And then I have a transcended card that increased tactile fighter burn damage. This is not adding CP, guys. Critical rate, critical damage is what's going to add that CP. These things right here, attack and penetration, right? So like, it's just a lot easier to use your Street Fighter characters or certain collaborations in order to go all the way top to acquire that 201,000 CP. Obviously, your codex makes a difference because if you have all of these characters, like if you have all these characters, for every character they leveled to level 30, to level 60, to level 90, you're going to gain more CP. Every character that you have leveled up, you're going to gain even more HP, attack, and defenses for your entire roster, right? And on my main account, all my characters are pretty much leveled up. And then, of course, your fame system makes a big difference too because, you know, for purple, like for Akuma, I have my attack at 12, I have my defense at 7, and I have my penetration at 10. So that did help him quite a bit. And for green, I just have attack at 12. So Akuma also has some advantages because he actually has defense and penetration leveled up a little bit, which actually aided in his BP amount, right? And Rugal actually has attack here and defense and penetration. So there was an advantage for Rugal and Akuma as far as my fame system because I had more stats leveled up, whereas Orochi in the green, all I had was attack. So that is also something else to take into consideration. Now, when it comes to facing chapter of fight, right? We jump in chapter of fight here. When it comes to facing this, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and bring up something for you guys right now, which is this right here. So this is what it looked like, guys, before I completed it. Obviously, you don't see all the stages highlighted in pink. And these are the characters that I had to fight, right? I had to fight, you know, Terry, then Guinness, then Leona, then Elizabeth, and then Orochi. So, and I only have 3 characters that had enough CP in order to be able to do this. So what I had to do is actually do a little finagling. Terry is so freaking nuts, guys, because he can actually stun you immediately with his first skill and then do the explosion with his second skill. And if he hits you with that Starlight, it will just do so much damage to you that you're eventually going to die before the fight actually ends. So what I did was I just put Chun-Li as the first character and just let her die against Terry because he's actually a very, very difficult character to take down. He's got a shield, he's got his immunity core, Very, very hard. Then the next character is Genitz, right? Now, Genitz has a counter fear. So what I did was I used Rugal because he's actually immune to fear. So that counter won't play a part against Rugal. And if you play Rugal a certain way, you can absolutely murder if you're a little methodical in how you play him. He can actually do really well because he has a nice range attack on the Kaiser Wave from his first skill, right? And there's also some other things. Then you have Leona afterwards. Now, for Leona, I actually used Bison. Leona is very difficult to deal with. If she hits her fear, she can apply fear and she'll just kill you instantly. So I just use Bison as a fodder character, let himself die because I don't have enough CP on him. And then after that, I use Akuma for Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth does have Reflect and she also has a heal, but because we got enough CP on my Akuma, I was able to take her down and defeat her. And then I used BS Orochi versus 97 Orochi. There's also other things to take into consideration, like whenever you're facing characters that can remove your buffs, remove your super armor, hyper armor, sometimes it's good to use certain characters as fodder, right? And just let them die against those characters, like what you guys are going to see me do with Chun-Li and Bison, and just use certain characters to counter other characters in Chapter 5 to make your life a whole lot easier. So I'll go ahead and play this for you guys so you can watch how I was able to do stage 100 in Chapter of Fight. I'm just going to come ahead and move it forward, kind of skip along here. And here we go, guys. Right, I'm just letting Chun-Li die, guys. She doesn't have enough CP. I'm not going to do any damage to Terry, right? I mean, Terry's very difficult to deal with. All right, so now we're facing Genitz, and I got my Rugal, who's immune to fear. So we don't have to worry about Genitz's counter. Now, Genitz can really screw you up because he actually has a remove super armor, hyper armor on his second skill. But yeah, I mean, we took damage from that bleed. Ugh. And if this was Terry's Starlight, it would just keep depleting and depleting our life, guys, because of the duration of the Starlight. And it's over now. It's over. Poor Genitz is going down. Oh, yeah. Boom, right? Okay, so in our next fight, we're going to be using Bison against Leona. We're just going to let Bison die. He's just going to be a fodder character just like we did with Chun-Li because, again, I don't have enough CP on this character, right? His counter fear actually engaged there. Boom. And another thing, guys, in Chapter 5, you really want to level up 3 characters to be able to do this. So now we got Akuma, right? Now, Akuma is pretty awesome because, well, he's awesome for a lot of reasons, but because he can reset that first skill, that's actually really cool because even though we have the long cooldowns, because we're not using any cooldown cards, we can actually just keep shooting that first skill over and over and over, kind of stall the timer, keep Elizabeth on the ground. So that way we can enter our awakened skill and spam our awakened skill and do enough damage to Elizabeth to defeat her. Oh, yeah. Oh, my boy, getting it done. So awesome, man. So awesome that I didn't have to put as much into Akuma in order to be able to do this. And this is the first time, by the way, that I ever cleared stage 100 in Chapter of 5. So now we got Orochi, and we need to be very careful because 97 Orochi, who we're facing, does have Dot Explosion on his third skill. So what we're going to do is use our basic attacks to kind of, keep Orochi locked on the ground there. BS Orochi's basic attacks are freaking phenomenal. You just kind of got to back away a little bit when you're using his attacks. And if you notice, guys, we're not really doing that much damage because our CP is just a little bit above the minimum requirement that we need, right? We needed 201,000 CP in order to do this. I think we got like 204,000 CP, so it's not a whole lot higher. If it was higher, we'd actually melt that meter a lot faster, but it isn't, right? So I got to play the whole waiting game where I'm just kind of hitting 97 Orochi over and over again, try to keep him on the ground, right? Yeah. I mean, yeah, and if 97 Orochi hits us just one time, if he applies Starlight and hits that explosion, he's going to do a nutty amount of damage to us. But because he's a regular Fest character, he just doesn't have certain meta effects as other characters, and he's a lot easier to take down, right? Oh, yeah. And BS Orochi can remove a shield or hyper armor from his third skill. And booyah. And I just kind of stalled the timer, did my basic attacks, and boom, shakalaka, my friends. We were able to get stage 100 clear, get all of the rubies from Chapter 5, get all these resources for the crafting events, so that way we can get more moon and star-shaped stones So that is pretty damn phenomenal, guys. That is awesome, right? So that is how I cleared all the way to stage 100 in chapter and fight. Let me know if you guys were able to, let me know how far you guys were able to go in chapter fight. And I do stream on Twitch at 9 p.m. GT+7 time. The link is in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, y'all. Take care and have a good one. See everybody.